Hello everyone! Yes, it is that time of year again. It is my annual tradition where I rank all the books I read in the past year. And good news, 2024 is probably one of the best years for books I've read in a long time. I don't know if it's the best year, but certainly in a long time. And it's funny, towards the end of the year, I thought to myself, I have not read a book this year that I thought was bad. They've all been either pretty good or great. None that I would say are bad. But I guess I must have jinxed it because unfortunately, as I was thinking that, the next book I happen to read is the only bad book that came out last year that I read. So unfortunately, they're not all winners. So obviously, the book that was bad is at the bottom of my list this year, so let's just get right into it. At number 8, the worst book I've read this year is the newest Diary of a Wimpy Kid book, Hot Mess. This certainly was a mess, although it was not a hot book, because this book is really bad. Now, there's some comments I've read from Wimpy Kid fans saying that they actually enjoyed this book and thought it was funny, and that's great if you were one of the people that liked this book. I did not. So first of all, to address the obvious, it is another vacation book. I think this is the 4th time that Jeff Kinney has made a vacation Wimpy Kid book, and, I was starting to get tired of it when The Deep End came out. But we have another one. And it's not just that it's another vacation book as to why I thought it was bad. There are a multitude of reasons why I think this book is bad. But, that's like already, before I read the book, I was like, it's another vacation book? I mean, like, come on. How many vacation books can this man write? I mean, it's getting ridiculous at this point. So that was already a bad sign going into it. And the first 100 or so pages are pretty hard to get through, at least for me. There were not a lot of good jokes, and it was also really boring. Like, the first 100 or so pages is really boring. There are a few jokes that I thought were funny in this book. One in particular, is how Greg talks about how he wishes he could pay someone to take his place at a funeral. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's funny. That's relatable, because I hate going to funerals. However, unfortunately, another huge problem with this book is the characters. So this time around, it's not just Greg and his mom, his dad, his brother, and that little Manny fella. It's his extended family as well. So they all go on vacation together to a place that Greg's grandma went when she was younger. So Greg's entire extended family is, all cramped together with this vacation. First of all, it's a bad sign immediately when Greg is the most likable character in this book, because everyone around him is so unlikable. And it's weird considering that Greg is supposed to be the unlikable character, the unlikable sociopath. And so you already failed right there if you make Greg the most likable character, because the whole point of his character is supposed to be, he thinks the world revolves around him. He's a sociopath, and that's where the comedy is supposed to lie. But no, this book makes the Heffley family really unlikable, and, especially Greg's mom, Susan Heffley, who I've complained about in the past with other Wimpy Kid books, and it seems like every time they do a vacation book, Susan Heffley is always the worst character, because even though she is always the one that is encouraging the vacations and encouraging family get-togethers, she always shuts down everyone else's idea. Every time someone says, oh, I want to do this for fun, Susan Haffey's like, nah, no, we're not doing that. I'm shutting that down. So that's already, it's pretty obnoxious. But it's not just Greg's mom. Like I said, the entire family is really selfish. Another aspect of this book that I found to be puzzling is that Greg's Aunt Veronica apparently has like a YouTube channel or like I don't know, some sort of, she does live streams giving people financial advice. And apparently, in one of the live streams, her dog just happens to walk by the camera, and her followers were like, "That, you know, I want to see more of that dog," and the dog becomes very popular, and it's getting to the point where like no one cares about her financial advice, and they just want to see the dog. And I just thought it was very unrealistic because, like, not that people are interested in a pet in a video, but because this dog makes Aunt Veronica super famous. Like, I mean, like, you know, she wasn't famous when she was just talking about financial advice, but because of this dog, gifts are sent to her house. Her fans are like stalking her and wanting to find out. The dog's name is Dazzle, by the way, I think. Dazzle. And Dazzle gets stalkers and people want to find out where Dazzle is. And that's actually a big reason why the whole vacation becomes a disaster later on. Again, surprise, surprise, a Heffley family vacation is a disaster. Who could have saw that coming? We've only seen that 3 other times before. But because of Dazzle, the fans find out where Aunt Veronica is because she like posted pictures on social media. Or I guess no, Greg posted pictures on social media because he borrowed someone's phone and he's taking pictures on to post on social media, and that's where the fans find out where Dazzle is. And I just thought it was really unrealistic because I get that people on the internet, you know, everybody loves dogs and cats, whatever, but like, why would someone become like famous and have all these stalkers just because of a pet they have? What is so special about this dog? Look, everyone, I have my cat in the video. Say hi, Chloe. There we go. I'm gonna make this part of the thumbnail for this video. See if I get 1 million views. But yeah, this is one of the worst Wimpy Kid books I've read. I don't know if I'd say it's the worst. I'd say The Deep End is probably worse. But I really don't really like where the Wimpy Kid books are heading, because we're 19 Wimpy Kid books in now, at least in the main series. That's not even counting like the spin-offs and the DIY books. But I probably said this before, but it really feels like Jeff Kinney is running out of ideas, and the series has become too much about like wacky hijinks and like disasters, you know, and the comedy is less the comedy is supposed to be grounded in realism. All Jeff Kinney does now is just like write about, oh, everything that can go wrong goes wrong, and that's the comedy. And it's just, it almost feels like it's become less about Greg and more about just like the Wimpy Kid universe in general. And I thought the comedy was better when it was just about Greg trying to get more popular, trying to become famous, and he's like delusional and thinks he's better than everyone else. That's where the comedy lies, and like in his failure to become more famous, and you know, but it's just about like, oh, this went wrong, and that's the comedy. It's so predictable at this point. It's so formulaic. And I really wonder, like, 10 years from now, what the Wimpy Kid books are going to be like. Is it still going to be the same, or is Jeff Kinney going to try to switch it up? You know, are we going to get to, like, 30 books? I really wonder if Jeff Kinney can milk the series that much and have enough ideas for 30 books. But, you know, who knows? But yeah, Hot Mess is a disaster, quite literally. But now let's move on to the books that I actually liked. At number 7 is Babysitter's Little Sister, Karen's Sleepover. Karen's Sleepover is is probably the most average book on this list. Like I said, not bad. It's a good kiddie type message. Basically, she gets into a fight with one of her friends, doesn't invite her to the sleepover, or she doesn't want to come to the sleepover, so she invites someone else, and this new girl, Karen doesn't like at all. So I guess she realizes about true friendship is basically the message of this book. It's very kiddie. I don't think it's as creative as some of the past books. Certainly not as good as like Karen's Birthday, which I praised. So yeah, not as creative, but it is good nonetheless. Yeah, that's really all I have to say about it. It's a fine book. Kiddie type message. Moving on. At number 6 is Sunny Makes Her Case. Now, I did not like the last Sunny book that much. Sunny Makes a Splash. I just thought it was kind of pointless. The majority of that book was just Sunny talking to her friends, and that's pretty much it. Now, thankfully, Sunny Makes Her Case actually has more of a story to it and is not just like nonsense for most of the book. Sunny joins the debate club, and so it gives her something that actually she feels like she's passionate about, and also gives her motivation and gives her something that she actually wants to accomplish something with. So she joins this debate club, and I think it's a good story for a Sunny book. And I like the message of being able to fit in with your own unique style, and you know, you can still fit in without trying to be like everyone else. And I thought that was unique. I thought that was inspiring. But unfortunately, I think the book is lacking in I've said this before, but I think I don't like the art of the Sunny books. I think it's way too simplistic, and I just don't find it appealing. I also think that the book is just lacking standout moments. There wasn't really any moments in this book that I looked at and said, they did a great job with this, and this is a great moment. There just wasn't any moment like that, and I feel like that the book could have used moments like that. But the way it is, I mean, it's a good book. I do think it's a good story, but it's just lacking in some areas, and I think that's the biggest problem. It's much better than Sunny Makes a Splash. It is a good book, but it feels like those types of books where you read it and you think, yeah, this was pretty good, but then you just don't really think about it a lot afterwards, and you don't really feel compelled to go back and read it. At number 5 is the newest Babysitter's Little Sister book, Karen's Grandmothers. So basically, Karen's school is having this little visit with a senior center, and each kid is assigned to one of the seniors there, and basically adopts them and kind of gets to have like a craft day with them and like have a hangout basically. Something I really liked about this book is that Karen throughout the series is always shown to be a very kind person, helps her friends and all that, and she helps her friend Nancy in this book overcome her shyness around old people. Nancy is not really the most comfortable around old people, and so Karen has to encourage her and try to help her be more comfortable around them. But at the same time, the book shows that Karen herself is not exactly perfect. There's several times towards the end of the book, she starts making excuses as to why she doesn't want to hang out with the senior she's assigned to, who she calls Grandma B. She doesn't really want to hang out with Grandma B because Grandma B is very different and has a lot of interests that is different from Karen, and is not really not things that she's used to. So she makes these excuses, and the book shows that Karen is not perfect, and that's something that I thought was, that I think is worthy of praise. And she learns her lesson at the end of the book, and everything's all good. Now, something funny, at first I actually was not aware that the adapter and illustrator is different. It is no longer Katie Farina after book 8. The book 8 was apparently, I guess, her last book as adapter and illustrator. And I didn't even notice that at first until I actually got the book and I saw it was D.K. Yingst instead. And I think the reason why is because D.K. Yingst's art style is very similar to Katie Farina's. It's really not that much of a difference. So that's why I didn't notice at first until I actually saw the cover. So I just want to say, like, yeah, I think D.K. Yingst does a good job with the art. I also do like how D.K. Yingst adds like details of Karen's imagination. Above Karen's head sometimes you'll see like her imagination and what she's thinking about, and sometimes the whole panel, like the background around her, will change depending on her imagination at that time, and that is something that I thought was pretty cool, and I appreciate. So the art, D.K. Yingst did a good job. At number 4 is the newest Dork Diaries book, Tales from a Not So Bratty Little Sister. Now, this book is interesting because going into it, when I first saw the synopsis, when I first read the synopsis, and, you know, the cover and everything when it was released online, and it was said that, you know, Brianna is going to be writing in Nikki's diary. And I had doubts. Like, I was like, ugh, you know? I was like, it almost seemed like it was just like a repeat of book 9, Tales from a Not So Dorky Drama Queen. I think that's what it is. The titles of Dork Diaries books are confusing because there's so many now. But Dorky Drama Queen was about Mackenzie writing in Nikki's diary. So I thought that this book was just going to be like kind of like a repeat, and I'm very surprised to say that I really enjoyed this book. Is it the best Dork Diaries book? No, absolutely not. But out of the modern books, this is certainly one of the better ones. And I think the reason why I like this book, I think maybe some Dork Diaries fans would not like this book, and I'll get into why in a bit. But I'll tell you why I liked this book. Now look, you could absolutely make the argument that some of the Brianna entries in this book, it can be considered filler, but I enjoyed it because it's such silly, like, comedy, because, you know, it's from the perspective of a 6-year-old, so a lot of the diary entries do feel like they were written by a 6-year-old, and I think that adds to the comedy, and I think that's why I enjoyed it so much, because, like, it's silly comedy. Like, it's not exactly the most intellectual, funniest comedy ever, but I just thought it was just silly enough to the point where I thought it was cute, and I thought, you know, it was entertaining to me. It also did confirm that the titles of the Dork Diaries books are actually titles that Nikki gives her diaries, and it does confirm, I think this is the first confirmation we have, that each new Dork Diaries book is a new diary for Nikki, because I have it right here. Brianna does mention that she's going to be, since Nikki gives each of her diaries a name, I'm calling my diary Tales from a Not So Bratty Little Sister, Brianna's version. So it does actually confirm that Nikki does name each of her diaries Dorky Drama Queen, or Not So Fabulous Life, or Popular Party Girl, etc. So I thought that was interesting. And another comment I thought was funny was when Brianna says, "And these days, every smart and powerful girl has her own version of things, so why not me?" And that just made me think, is this supposed to be social commentary on movies these days and pop culture these days? So I just thought it was funny how this 6-year-old girl is giving social commentary on pop culture these days. So I actually thought that was pretty funny. Another part of the book that I thought was funny is that you get to see like Brianna's thoughts about like Nikki's friends, and I think she addresses Brandon as like, oh, that guy Nikki has a crush on, or that crush guy. I think that's what she refers to Brandon as oh, that crush guy. And for me, this was really refreshing because it almost feels like Rachel is poking fun at her own characters and basically making fun of certain tropes like that crush guy or, you know, the best friend. And it's through Brianna's like thoughts, and it's almost feels like Brianna is making fun of Dork Diaries, and I thought that was funny. So yeah, I think Rachel Renee Russell did a great job with the comedy and the silliness of Brianna's thoughts. Now I want to address another thing that I really liked. So basically, you might be wondering, how does Brianna get her hands on Nikki's diary? And it's because Nikki passes out in the cupcake shop, or trying to get a cake or something, and it turns out she wakes up in the hospital, and this is later revealed towards the end of the book. It turns out she has appendicitis. I guess the ambulance was called on her and they didn't have her phone or her diary, so they were trying to get in contact with her parents, and so her parents don't know where she is. Brianna decides to write in Nikki's diary, and again, this another part of the comedy I like is that like Brianna's like, we don't know where Nikki is, she could be dead, but I'm writing in her diary. But I loved the ending of this book because, you know, Nikki's in the hospital recovering from her surgery, and her friends, of course, visit her, and then, you know, her family finds out what happened. Brianna visits her. And I thought it was sweet. First of all, I like how much they show that Brianna, even though she terrorizes Nikki, and Nikki is very annoyed with Brianna's hijinks, but in the end, it does show that Brianna really does care and truly love her older sister, and I thought that was very sweet. And another thing is that I was very surprised Mackenzie visits Nikki in the hospital, and I was like, wow, like that's really surprising. And even though like Mackenzie is still acting like snarky towards Nikki during this visit, it shows that deep down Mackenzie does care about Nikki, and it's clear that Rachel is trying to slowly have Mackenzie maybe become friends with Nikki eventually. And I thought that was interesting because, you know, you have that moment. I was talking last year about the last book, book 15, which I've already forgotten the title. Where is it? Posh Paris Adventure. Yes, that's it. They have a moment near the end I mentioned where Mackenzie compliments Nikki and says that she's nice because Nikki helped the two of them get out of a scary situation. And so in this book, it goes further and shows that Mackenzie really does care about Nikki, visiting her in the hospital. And I thought that was interesting, and I'm curious as to where this is going to lead in future books. So yeah, this book was good. Like, this book was very enjoyable, and is one of the better Dork Diaries books. One of the best I've read in a long time, probably. At number 3 is the newest Babysitters Club book, Kristy and the Walking Disaster. So I was very surprised by this book. This is one of the best BSC books in a long time, probably the best out of the modern age. And so Kristy is the coach of a softball team, and they are going to be competing against, playing against another team, Bart's Bashers. So they're called Kristy's Crushers, and they're going up against Bart's Bashers. And I liked this book because Kristy is really trying her best to make the softball team, coaching the softball team to be the best that they can be, and to, you know, beat Bart's bashers and succeed. And basically, I appreciated the message of this book because it's trying to say that, you know, you should still try, give your best effort, even though you might not necessarily succeed. And they don't succeed in the end. Bart's bashers does end up beating them. And I liked that. It was a good message. And it also has some humorous moments. One thing I thought was pretty funny is that Karen in this book, she is unhappy with the fact that Kristy's Crushers is spelled wrong. It's spelled with a K instead of a C. So she's the only one with a shirt that has the proper spelling, and she refuses to spell it with a K, and I thought that was funny. So it's got humorous moments, it's got a good message, and I also think that Ellen T. Crenshaw does a good job with the art, and I think that the art complements the humorous moments. There's also like a kind of a plot B thrown in there about Kristy having a crush on the coach of Bart's bashers, and that was like the one part that was like, this could have been left out because it's kind of cliche, but it's really not that big of a deal. It does not take up that much of the book. So yeah, good job, Kristy and the Walking Disaster. A surprise hit in the modern age, and I enjoyed it. It's a pretty good book. At number 2 is Always Anthony. I really thought this was a good story and kind of unique because it's about two different people who come from different groups. Anthony is kind of in the popular crowd, and Leia is a very shy kind of bookworm. And these two characters come together, and it turns out they have a lot in common. So I think it was interesting to take these two characters who are from different groups, and they surprisingly are able to help each other overcome their social challenges, and so that was good. However, I do think that there is two flaws with this book, and I think it's that, number one, it's kind of long. I mean, it's not the longest book. It's far from the longest. It's not the longest book in the series. But I think that this story did not have to be as long as it was, because I found at times that it was not necessarily the most enjoyable because of how long it was. I had to take a couple breaks. So I feel like they could have made the book shorter. And also, the Emmy and Friends series is known for its two different perspectives on things, or like two different outcomes. It's always been like that. So you have like these panels that are focused on one character or one situation, and then it goes to a more traditional novel format for another character or another situation. This time around, I felt like it was entirely pointless. It's just like the perspective of Anthony and the perspective of Leia. But again, it's like the story could have been told from one perspective. The two different perspectives don't add anything. But like I said, good story, good characters, and it's even though it has flaws, it's not the best Emmy and Friends book. It's certainly not the worst. I think I've seen worse. And now we come to the best book of 2024, which for me is Break by Kayla Miller. So it's spring break, and instead of all of being with her friends, what she wants to do, and watching horror movies and going on campouts and stuff like that, instead, Olive has to spend a week with her dad, and her mom and dad are divorced. And so as a result, Olive is not really the most comfortable with it. Because this is the first time she's seen her dad in a long time. However, Olive's little brother is very excited about this because he's too young to really remember the drama that happened, but Olive is old enough to remember it, and as a result, she kind of feels like she feels resentment towards her dad, and can't help but remember the bad part of the divorce, and she doesn't really want to give her dad a chance, even though her dad is really trying to make it up to Olive, and, you know, her little brother is having the time of his life. They're doing all sorts of things that he wants to do, but Olive is not really into it, and she just kind of wants to be alone and just hang out with her friends. And I thought this book was written incredibly well. I enjoyed the relationship that each of the characters had, and they did a really good job with the characters. And something that I did really enjoy is that Olive gets her first smartphone, and she gets to use social media, and, you know, she has a camera, and I was worried that this would kind of be pandering a little bit, but no, I'm happy to say that social media and smartphones are actually used to benefit the story instead of just used to pander, because Olive sees all her friends, what her friends are doing through social media. So I really appreciate the way that social media is used in this story. And another thing that I really liked is towards the end, when Olive meets up with Natasha, who in the past she has not had a good relationship with. She doesn't really like Natasha, and Natasha is not the biggest fan of Olive either. But surprisingly, Natasha is able to encourage Olive to give her dad another chance. They have this part of the book and towards the end where they're sitting on a bench together and they're just kind of talking. Natasha's talking about how if her mom were here, then she would give her a second chance immediately, and that, you know, you don't have to forgive your dad, you don't have to forgive anything, but you should at least give him a chance. So I just love that they took this character that Olive has had conflict in the past and isn't really the biggest fan of, and use it to actually help Olive this time around. And so I thought that was great. And again, they did a great job with all of the characters in this book. All of the characters that are used benefit the story in some way. They're not just used just to be there. But yeah, another book by Kayla Miller that I end up really liking. I think Kayla Miller is pretty much becoming my favorite author at this point, because there's not been a single book written by her that has been bad. I think her first two books, Click and Camp, sure, they could have been better, but they're certainly not bad. And Act was really good. Clash was pretty good. Crunch was great. And of course, I love the Besties spin-off books, what she is a collaborator on, Besties Find Their Groove. I've said it before, one of my favorite books ever. So I really have become interested to see year after year Kayla Miller's books, because I end up always liking them. So there you have it. There's all the books I read in 2024. Like I said, this was a good year, one of the best in a long time. And, you know, unfortunately, Hot Mess had to ruin things. But, you know, I'd recommend pretty much most of the books on this list. But yeah, now I'm just going to sit back and wait for my million views to come in, because I had my cat in the thumbnail and in the video. So, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good night.